When my husband told me his ex was coming to Christmas dinner, I thought he was joking. I actually laughed. A short, nervous laugh that sounded more like a question than amusement. But when I saw the look on his face, that still, serious look he always had when he thought he was being reasonable, the laughter caught in my throat. I remember the sound of the clock ticking behind him. The air smelled like cinnamon and pine. I had just finished decorating the house for Christmas, every little detail perfect, the way my mother used to do. The lights on the tree twinkled gently, reflecting off the gold ornaments I'd picked out together with him 2 years ago, and he just stood there, hands in his pockets, saying words that made my stomach twist. "She's coming with her husband and their kids," he said. "It's just dinner, Sarah. We're all adults. Adults." That word has always sounded like something people say right before doing something foolish. Before I tell you how everything fell apart, I want to tell you who we were before that night. Ethan and I had been married for 8 years. We met at a bookstore downtown, both of us reaching for the same copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. I remember he smiled and said, "If we share the same favorite book, maybe we should share a coffee too." I was 29 then, quiet, thoughtful, maybe a little too trusting. He was charming in the way people are when they know they're being watched, always aware of himself, always polished. He worked in real estate. I taught literature at a local high school. Our life together was comfortable. We had a small 2-story house in the suburbs with white shutters and a front porch swing. I'd wake up early, make us coffee, and play soft jazz while packing his lunch. He used to tease me about how I always wrote little notes on the napkins. "You're going to kill them with kindness someday," he'd say with a grin. On weekends, we'd walk through the farmer's market, buy fresh bread and flowers. I'd cook dinner. He'd pour wine. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were happy, until little by little, I started noticing his silences. It began around October that year, just 2 months before Christmas. He started spending more time on his phone. Late-night texts, quiet chuckles, long showers followed by hours of scrolling in bed. When I asked who he was talking to, he'd say, "Just work stuff." I believed him at first. I always did. Then came the subtle things. His cologne changed. He started dressing sharper, getting haircuts more often. When I'd ask if we could go out somewhere, just the two of us, he'd say he was tired or had a meeting. I told myself I was imagining it. That after 8 years, maybe we were just comfortable to the point of boredom. I didn't know there was another name on his mind. The first time he mentioned her was on a Sunday morning in early December. He was flipping through the newspaper at the kitchen table when he said casually, "You remember Claire?" I looked up from my coffee. "Claire who?" He smiled a little, a nostalgic, far-away kind of smile that made my chest tighten. "My ex from college. We dated before I met you. She and her husband just moved back into town." "Oh," I said, keeping my tone light, pretending it didn't sting. "That's nice." She reached out, he continued. Said she'd love to catch up sometime. Maybe we could invite them to Christmas dinner. It'd be nice, don't you think? I laughed, thinking he was joking. "Invite your ex to Christmas? Ethan, are you serious?" He looked up then, meeting my eyes. "Why not? We're friends now. It's been years. I don't see the problem," I wanted to say. "Because it's weird, Ethan. Because no sane woman wants to roast a turkey across from her husband's ex-girlfriend." But instead, I said nothing. Because I knew how he hated confrontation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to his breathing beside me. Slow, steady, peaceful. Meanwhile, my mind ran in circles. What did he mean by, "We're friends now"? How long had they been talking? Why did I feel like I was the last to know something important? The next morning, I found myself scrolling through his Instagram. There she was, Claire, smiling in a photo from a charity event last month. Ethan had liked it. Her husband looked tall, successful, the kind of man who wore confidence like a well-tailored suit. Something in me shifted that day. I started watching him more closely. His phone would buzz during dinner, and he'd glance at it before flipping it face down. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd smile, but his eyes, they never matched the smile. 2 weeks later, I got the announcement. I was standing by the kitchen counter, mixing cookie dough while the radio played softly. Ethan came in, phone in hand, face unreadable. He kissed my cheek, distractedly, and said, "By the way, I told Claire and her family to come over for Christmas." "You'll love them," I froze, spatula midair. "You what?" He blinked like he didn't understand why I was upset. "I already invited them. Don't worry, it'll be fine. You always throw the best dinners." The room felt suddenly smaller, the smell of vanilla too sweet, suffocating. I wanted to scream. But instead I wiped my hands, nodded, and said, "Of course. I'll make it perfect." Because that's what I'd always done. Made things perfect for everyone but myself. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat in the living room alone. The Christmas lights flickered softly. The house looked warm, festive, peaceful. But inside I felt hollow. I kept picturing her, Claire, sitting at my table, sipping wine from my glasses, smiling at my husband. There's something cruel about pretending to be civilized when your heart is breaking. Something quietly violent about being told to smile through humiliation. And I decided that night, if she was coming, I would be ready. Not in anger, but in truth, because what Ethan didn't know was that I had already discovered why Claire had really come back into his life. And by Christmas night, everyone would know too. The calm before the storm, before Christmas came, before the secrets, before the long stares across the table. We were a simple couple with small, ordinary dreams. I used to love our mornings the most. The way sunlight would slip through the curtains and settle softly across Ethan's side of the bed. He always slept on his back, one arm bent behind his head, the other reaching out for me even in his sleep. There was something tender about that. Like no matter how the day went, we always started in reach of each other. The sound of the coffee maker, the smell of toasted bread. Those were the quiet things that made our home feel alive. We didn't need grand gestures or expensive gifts, just shared silence and the comfort of knowing someone was there. That was before the distance began. I remember that December vividly. The way every day seemed to carry a chill that no blanket could fix. The town was beautiful that time of year. Lights hanging from rooftops, the faint sound of Christmas music leaking out of shop doors, kids bundled in scarves, laughing as they ran past the bakery. I used to stop there after school and buy Ethan his favorite, cinnamon rolls with extra icing. He loved sweet things. He said it balanced out my salty personality. And I'd laugh, even though I knew he meant I was too practical for my own good. Back then, I didn't mind being the practical one. I kept our bills in order, planned our meals, handled the small repairs around the house. Ethan was the dreamer, the one who believed every bad day could be fixed with good wine and good music. We balanced each other. At least that's what I thought. A week before Christmas, I started preparing early. I always took pride in hosting, the table setting, the playlist, the candles. My mother used to say that a well-set table could make even the most broken heart feel at home. I spent hours polishing the silverware, ironing napkins, and planning the menu. Turkey, glazed ham, garlic potatoes, green bean casserole, the works. Even the dessert, pecan pie and chocolate mousse, was carefully chosen. Ethan would come in sometimes, kiss my forehead and say, "You're going overboard again, honey." Maybe I was. But it wasn't just about dinner for me. It was about control. About making sure that no matter what life took from me, I could still create something beautiful. One evening, while I was wrapping gifts, Ethan came into the living room carrying his laptop. "Hey," he said, settling beside me. "I want to show you something." He turned the screen toward me, a photo. Claire and her family at a Christmas charity drive. She was standing beside a tall man, her husband I assumed, and 2 children with wide blue eyes. "She's changed so much," Ethan said softly. "Can you believe it's been over 10 years? I forced a smile. "She looks happy," he nodded. "She's always been strong. You'd like her." The words landed heavier than he meant them to. I'd like her, the woman who once had his heart, the woman he was inviting into my home. So I said nothing. I just kept wrapping gifts, the sound of the tape pulling away from the roll, cutting through the silence like a blade. The next morning, I visited my sister, Hannah. She was the opposite of me, fiery, bold, always unfiltered. We were sitting in her kitchen when I told her about Claire's upcoming visit. She nearly dropped her coffee mug. "You're kidding." "I wish I were." She stared at me. "And you're okay with that?" "I don't know," I said, sighing. "I mean, what can I do? He already invited them." Hannah leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Sarah, I love you, but this is not normal. You don't invite your ex and her husband to Christmas dinner. Something's off." I wanted to argue, to defend him, but deep down I knew she was right. Still, I found myself saying the same thing I always did. "Ethan's not like that. He's just friendly." Hannah gave me a look that only sisters can give. That mix of love and disbelief. "Friendly doesn't mean naive," she said. "You're too trusting. Just promise me you'll keep your eyes open." I nodded, though part of me didn't want to, because once you open your eyes, you can't unsee what's been there all along. By Christmas Eve, the house was glowing. The smell of roasted turkey filled the air, candles flickered in the windows, soft music played in the background. Ethan seemed genuinely happy for the first time in weeks, humming to himself, setting up extra chairs around the table. He looked up at me, smiling. "See? You were worried for nothing. It's just dinner." I tried to smile back, but something in his tone made my chest ache. He wasn't just excited, he was nervous. And that made me nervous. Later that night, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, trying on the red dress he'd bought me last Christmas. It still fit perfectly, though it felt tighter around the chest. I looked at myself and thought, maybe if I look beautiful enough, maybe if I smile enough, he'll see me again. But when I stepped out and asked how I looked, he just said, "You always look nice. Not beautiful. Not breathtaking, just nice. Sometimes indifference hurts more than cruelty." That night I lay awake again. Ethan's phone buzzed twice around midnight. He didn't move, but I did. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see the screen light up. A message preview flashed before disappearing. "Claire, see you tomorrow, can't wait." My stomach dropped. It wasn't just dinner, and whatever was between them, it wasn't over. I didn't sleep after that. Instead, I sat on the couch, the soft hum of the heater filling the silence. I stared at the Christmas tree, every ornament glinting in the dim light, and thought about all the years we'd built together. The trips, the anniversaries, the small fights that always ended with laughter. Had all of it been real? Or was I just holding on to something that had quietly ended without telling me? By the time morning came, I had already made up my mind. I wouldn't start a fight. I wouldn't cry. If she was coming to my house, to my table, then I would meet her as the woman I truly was. Not the wife who waited to be chosen, but the one who had already learned how to see through silence. And before the night ended, Ethan would learn something too. Something he would never forget. Christmas morning arrived with the sound of rain tapping gently against the windows. It wasn't snow, not the picture-perfect white Christmas I'd imagined, but something softer, quieter, almost fitting, given how fragile everything felt. Ethan was already downstairs when I woke up. I could hear his voice faintly through the kitchen walls, low, calm, familiar. But there was another tone in it too, lighter, warmer. I slipped out of bed, pulling my robe tighter, and followed the sound. He was standing near the counter, one hand in his pocket, the other holding his phone to his ear. He didn't notice me at first. "Of course," he said softly, smiling. "You remember how you used to—" He stopped mid-sentence when he saw me in the doorway. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who are you talking to?" He hesitated just long enough for me to know the answer. "Just Mark from work," he said, turning away slightly. "He's confirming a client dinner for next week." But the way he said dinner, it lingered too long, too practiced. I busied myself making coffee, pretending not to notice how quickly he slipped his phone into his pocket. The smell of roasted beans filled the kitchen. I stirred my cup slowly, watching the cream swirl and disappear. "Everything ready for tonight?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "Almost," I said. "Just need to pick up the dessert from the bakery." He smiled, that same absent smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You always overdo it, Sarah. But that's what I love about you." The words were sweet, but the tone was automatic, like he'd said it just to end a conversation. That was when I realized something. He was treating me the way people treat furniture they've stopped noticing, familiar, useful, but invisible. Around noon, I went into town to collect the desserts. The air was crisp, the streets lined with garlands and tiny golden lights. I remember standing outside the bakery window for a moment, watching couples walk by hand in hand, laughing. I thought about the early years with Ethan, the nights we'd danced in the kitchen, the times he'd sneak up behind me just to whisper, "You're my forever." It felt like a different lifetime. Inside the bakery, the cashier smiled at me. "Picking up for Sarah Coleman?" she asked. "Yes." She disappeared into the back and returned with 2 boxes tied in red ribbon. As I reached for my wallet, she smiled politely and said, "Oh, your husband already paid for these earlier this morning." I froze. "He did?" "Yep. He came in right after opening. Said you might be busy getting ready for company." That struck me as odd. Ethan hated errands. He hadn't bought groceries in months, let alone gone to a bakery at 8 a.m. I took the boxes, thanked her, and walked back to the car, the thought gnawing at me. Why would he come here so early? When I got home, he was in the living room setting up the music playlist. "Hey," I said lightly, testing him. "Thanks for picking up the desserts this morning." He blinked. "Oh, yeah, no problem." There was a brief flicker in his expression. Surprise. Because he hadn't expected me to know. And that was the first real moment I felt it. That shift in the air. That awareness that something wasn't right. By evening, the house was glowing again. Candles lit, table set, the smell of honey-glazed ham drifting through every room. Ethan looked sharp in his navy blue sweater, the one I'd bought for our 5th anniversary. He was pacing, checking his watch, glancing at the window every few minutes. "She said they'd be here around 7, he murmured. "She?" I repeated quietly. He looked up, startled for a second. Claire and her family." I nodded. "Of course." But his slip told me more than he meant to. His focus wasn't on them. It was on her. At exactly 7:12, the doorbell rang. The sound was so sharp, it cut through the music. Ethan straightened immediately, running a hand through his hair like a nervous teenager. I followed him to the door, my heartbeat slow but heavy. And there she was. Claire. Tall, graceful, with soft blonde curls and a smile that could make you forgive 1,000 things. She was holding a basket of gifts, her husband beside her. Polite, quiet, perfectly composed. Their 2 children clung to her legs, shy but adorable, Ethan's face lit up like I hadn't seen in months. "Claire," he said, stepping forward to hug her. I noticed the way his hand lingered a second too long on her back, and the way she looked at him. Not as an old friend, but as someone who remembered things. Private things. When he finally stepped aside, she turned to me. "You must be Sarah," she said warmly. "I've heard so much about you." I smiled, the kind of polite smile that hides more than it reveals. "All good things, I hope." "Of course," she said, her tone light but knowing. "Ethan always said you were the one who finally tamed him." I laughed softly. "Well, some men don't stay tamed for long." Her eyes flickered, just for a second. It was enough. Dinner started beautifully. Laughter, polite conversation, the clinking of silverware. But beneath it all, there was a current, a rhythm only I seemed to hear. They talked about old memories, college stories, inside jokes that left me smiling politely while they shared a look only two people with history can share. Even her husband seemed oblivious, chuckling at stories that weren't his to laugh at. At one point, Ethan poured her wine before mine. It was a small thing, but small things often speak the loudest. Later, while clearing plates, I overheard them talking near the doorway. Their voices were low, intimate. "I can't believe you remember that," she said, laughing softly. "How could I forget?" he replied. "You used to—" Then he stopped, sensing me behind them. "Everything okay?" I asked quietly. Ethan cleared his throat. "Yeah, just reminiscing." Claire smiled. "We were just talking about how crazy we all were back then." I nodded, setting the plates down gently. But my hands were trembling, because the way they looked at each other, that wasn't nostalgia. That was unfinished business. After dessert, the kids went to play in the living room while the adults lingered at the table. Her husband got a work call and stepped outside. Ethan and Claire sat across from me, laughing about some college prank. And then she reached out, placed her hand on his arm. It was subtle, gentle even, but it changed everything. Ethan froze for half a second, then smiled. Neither of them looked at me. I watched them both, quiet, still, my spoon slowly resting beside the untouched dessert. That was the moment my heart went cold. Not from jealousy, but from clarity. Because now I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't innocent. And tonight, I would make sure the truth found its way to the surface. The sound of laughter still echoed faintly from the living room, where the children were playing. But here, at the dinner table, everything had gone still. Ethan and Claire sat close, not touching anymore, but close enough that the air between them felt heavy. The candles had burned down halfway, casting flickering shadows that danced across their faces. I remember thinking how strange it was, how betrayal can hide so easily in a room filled with warmth. I excused myself quietly. "I'll get more wine," I said, standing up before either of them could protest. In the kitchen, I set the bottle down on the counter and just stood there for a moment. The world felt muffled, like sound couldn't quite reach me anymore. My pulse thudded in my ears. I wasn't naive. I knew what I'd seen. The way she'd looked at him, the softness in his voice when he said her name. You don't talk like that to someone you've left behind. You talk like that to someone you still want. I didn't want a scene, not yet, but I needed the truth. While I was in the kitchen, I noticed something on the counter. Ethan's phone, face down. It buzzed once. I shouldn't have looked. I told myself not to. But curiosity is a cruel kind of survival. You look because you have to. I turned it over. A message lit up the screen. "Claire, I can't believe we're actually here. You look just like I remembered." My stomach twisted. The timestamp was from earlier that morning, before I even woke up. I clicked the thread. My hands were shaking, but I kept scrolling. "Ethan, I'm glad you came. Tonight feels like old times. Claire, be careful. She's not stupid. Ethan, I know. But it's fine. Just one night." Just one night, my heart sank. That's what I had become. A background character in the story of my own marriage. I set the phone down slowly, my reflection faint in the black screen. There was no scream, no tears, just a numb, quiet knowing. 8 years. 8 years of loyalty, laughter, shared dreams, reduced to a text that sounded like a secret. When I walked back into the dining room, Ethan looked up, his smile faltering as he saw my face. "Everything okay?" he asked. I met his eyes, calm but cold. "Just fine," I said. Why wouldn't it be? Claire looked between us, her expression polite but uneasy. The kind of woman who knows the game has changed, but doesn't yet know the new rules. "Actually," I said softly, taking my seat again, "I wanted to share something before dessert." Ethan frowned. Now? Yes, I said. Now feels right. I reached for my wine glass, steady hands despite the storm inside me. Do you know what I love most about Christmas? I asked, my tone light, conversational. Everyone comes together. Family, friends, even old lovers. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Sarah, I held up a hand. No, please. Let me finish. I turned to Claire, smiling gently. You know, it's funny. When Ethan told me you were coming, I thought it was strange. But now that I see you two together, it makes sense. Claire shifted in her seat. I'm not sure what you mean. Oh, I think you do, I said softly. You've been talking to him for months, haven't you? Her eyes widened. What? No, Ethan cut in, his tone sharp. Sarah, that's enough, but I didn't stop. Because once the truth starts spilling, it doesn't care about timing. I saw your messages, I said quietly. All of them. The silence that followed was thick, almost sacred. Even the sound of the kids' laughter in the next room felt distant. Ethan's face went pale. You went through my phone? I looked at the screen, I replied evenly. It wasn't hard to find. You left it right there. Claire's husband had just stepped back inside, phone still in his hand. He froze at the doorway, sensing the tension instantly. What's going on? He asked, eyes darting between us. I turned to him, calm as ever. Your wife and my husband have been in touch for a while. Texting, meeting up, sharing memories. He blinked, confusion morphing into disbelief. That can't be true. Claire stood abruptly. It's not what it sounds like. Ethan followed, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. Sarah, you're making a scene. I laughed then, a quiet, broken sound. A scene? Ethan, you invited your ex-girlfriend to Christmas dinner. You've been messaging her behind my back, and I'm the one making a scene? He rubbed his temples, sighing. You're twisting things. I'm reading your words, I said. Word for word. The room fractured then. Claire's husband demanded to see her phone. She hesitated. That was answer enough. He turned to Ethan. You said you were just old friends. Ethan looked trapped, his eyes flicking between the three of us. It wasn't like that, he said weakly. It was just memories. We were just catching up. Just one night. I repeated softly. That's what you said in your message. His jaw tightened. You went too far, Sarah. No, I whispered. You did. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The only sound was the faint hiss of the fireplace and the low hum of the Christmas carol still playing in the background. Silent night. The irony wasn't lost on me. Claire's husband was the first to move. He grabbed his coat and quietly said, We're leaving. Wait, Claire began, but he shook his head. No. You've said enough without saying anything. He took the kids by the hand and walked them out. Claire followed, pale and shaking. She turned to me once at the door, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I nodded once. It never is. The door closed softly behind them. And then it was just us. Ethan sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Are you happy now? He asked bitterly. No, I said. I'm heartbroken. But I'm done pretending. He looked up, eyes red. It wasn't what you think. I didn't sleep with her. We just talked. I stared at him. Then why hide it? Why lie? He hesitated. Because you wouldn't understand. I smiled sadly. You're right. I don't understand how a man throws away 8 years of marriage for nostalgia. He looked at me, searching for the woman who used to forgive everything. But she wasn't there anymore. I just missed who I was with her, he said quietly. That was the truth he didn't mean to give. And it hurt more than the lies, because he wasn't missing her. He was missing the version of himself that didn't have to be accountable. I stood, my voice soft but final. Then maybe you should go find that man again. Because the one standing in front of me, I don't recognize him. He didn't stop me when I walked upstairs. Didn't call out, didn't follow. I closed the bedroom door and leaned against it, my body trembling, my eyes burning but dry. Outside, rain turned to sleet, tapping against the window like tiny, urgent fingers. I looked at the Christmas tree glowing faintly downstairs through the railing, the ornaments glistening. the house still smelling of cinnamon and heartbreak. That night, I slept in the guest room. And for the first time in 8 years, I didn't set 2 coffee cups out in the morning. The next morning, the house was too quiet. You know that kind of silence that feels heavy, like it's holding its breath? That's how it felt. I could hear Ethan moving downstairs, the clatter of dishes, the kettle whistling. He was pretending nothing had happened, pretending that we were still us. But the thing about pretending, once you've seen the truth, it doesn't fit anymore. I took my time getting ready that morning, not because I had anywhere to go, but because I needed to look like a woman who remembered who she was before she forgot. I combed my hair, put on a clean sweater, and stared at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't weak. She wasn't naive. She was tired, yes, but she was awake now. When I walked downstairs, Ethan looked up from the kitchen table. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair messy. He'd clearly been up all night. He tried to smile. "Morning." "Morning," I said, my voice even. He pushed a cup of coffee toward me, the second cup. "Old habits. I thought we could talk," he said. I sat down, but I didn't touch the cup. "I think we said everything last night." He shook his head. "No, you said everything." I didn't get a chance to explain. I looked at him for a long moment. "Then explain," I said softly. He leaned forward, his hands clasped. "It wasn't about her, Sarah. It was about me. I've been feeling lost for a while. Stuck. When Claire messaged me, it just brought back memories of a time when I wasn't so unhappy." I finished for him, he sighed. "Yeah, I guess so." I nodded slowly. "And instead of talking to me, your wife, you reached out to the one person who made you feel wanted again." He flinched. "That's not fair." "It's true," I said. "You didn't want to fix what we had. You wanted to escape it." He looked away, jaw tight. "You make everything sound so cold." "It is cold, Ethan," I said quietly. "That's what betrayal feels like." For a while, neither of us spoke. Just the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, marking the end of something neither of us wanted to admit, was dying. Finally, I stood up. "I'm not going to fight for someone who's already halfway out the door," I said. "I'm not her. I won't beg." He looked up sharply. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," I took a deep breath, "I need space. You need to leave for a while." He frowned. "You're kicking me out? On Christmas?" I met his eyes. "You invited your ex to Christmas dinner, Ethan. I think the calendar stopped mattering the moment you did that." He didn't argue. He just sat there, silent, realizing maybe for the first time that I wasn't bluffing. He left that afternoon, quietly, without another word. No dramatic goodbye, no promises, just the sound of the front door closing behind him, and suddenly, the house that once felt too small for both of us felt too big for me alone. For days, I moved through silence like it was water. Slow, heavy, strange. I cleaned the kitchen, washed the sheets, took down the decorations one by one. Each ornament carried a memory. Our first Christmas together, the glass star he bought in Paris, the handprint ornament from our daughter's preschool. It hurt to touch them. But I kept going, because healing isn't soft, it's labor. On the 5th day, I got a call from Claire's husband. I almost didn't answer, but something in me wanted closure. He said, "I just wanted to say..." "Thank you. For what?" I asked, confused. "For telling me the truth," he said. "It hurt like hell, but at least I know now." I filed for separation. I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, "I'm sorry you had to find out that way." He gave a small, humorless laugh. "Don't be. It's better than living in a lie." That sentence stayed with me long after the call ended. Better than living in a lie. A week later, Ethan came back, not to stay, but to talk. He looked different, deflated. He'd been staying with a friend. "I miss you," he said simply. "I miss us." I stared at him, searching for sincerity, and maybe, deep down, hoping to find it. But I didn't, because what he missed wasn't me. It was the version of me that made it easy for him to feel good about himself. I took a slow breath. I'm not angry anymore, I said. But I can't go back. Not after everything, he nodded, eyes glossy. I understand. Good, I said gently. Then you'll understand this too. I'm filing for separation. He blinked, stunned. You're serious? Yes, he swallowed hard, then nodded again. Okay, he said quietly. If that's what you need. After he left, I walked to the window and watched him drive away. No tears. Just a strange calm. Outside, the world was bright. The snow from last week had melted, revealing small patches of green underneath. It felt symbolic somehow. I realized then, this wasn't the end of my story. It was just the end of the chapter where I kept losing myself for someone else. A few weeks later, I started writing again. Little pieces at first. Essays, thoughts, fragments of memories. It felt strange, liberating. One night I wrote, "Sometimes love doesn't die. It just changes shape and asks you to love yourself instead." I read it aloud to the quiet house and smiled. By spring, the house no longer felt haunted. I painted the living room a warm, soft yellow. I replaced our framed wedding photo with a picture of me and the kids at the park, laughing, carefree. Real smiles. People kept asking me if I hated Ethan. The truth is, I didn't. I pitied him, because he didn't lose a wife. He lost a woman who would have stood by him through anything if he'd just been honest. Last Christmas, I hosted dinner again. This time it was smaller, just me, the kids, and a few close friends. No tension, no secrets. And when I lit the candles, I realized something simple but powerful. Peace doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it just looks like finally being okay. At the end of the night, when everyone had gone home, I sat by the fire with a cup of tea and whispered to myself, "Thank you, Ethan." Not because he deserved it, but because losing him brought me back to me. Sometimes love isn't the miracle that saves you. Sometimes it's the storm that teaches you how to swim, and when the water finally stills, you realize you never needed to be rescued, you just needed to wake up.